Well, thank you. I've spent, like most of my career, working on social change and community building in a variety of settings. And it comes as a little mixed blessing that now I'm really well known for a tortilla chip. What does a tortilla chip have to do with making our community better? Well, I was pretty resistant to this idea. First, I was resistant to having a business at all. Growing up in the 60s and thinking anything business was capitalism and capitalism is evil. But I gave in because I really did believe that the lion's share of food in our country and of agriculture in our country, which goes to growing grains and beans, is something that's missing from the local food scene. So we've all been getting excited about local food, but local food sometimes seems to be the thing that people of means can afford and people who don't have means will never get to, because it costs money. It costs, actually, I've learned in just the last few years, the right amount of money. Because if you look down the food value chain from the eater, many of whom are poor, more and more of them are poor in our country, back to the worker in the field, many of whom are poor, more and more of them are poor in our country, you see that food is a real justice issue. But what do grains and beans really have to do with it? Grains and beans account for most of agriculture in the world and in our country, and they have represented the most important piece of the diet in terms of nutrition for people worldwide since agriculture began. And yet, most of the grains and beans in agriculture today are highly chemicalized and lower nutrition. They are actually developed for yield, but not for sustenance. And looking around and being kind of excited back 7 years ago about all the farmers markets and the great bags of food I could pull out of a market that, wow, isn't this great? And then my partner, I have to thank Brandon, said, he calls it existential anxiety. He said, well, now we're gonna go and buy our rice or our wheat or whatever, and we don't know where that comes from. It's not at any farmer's market. And why is that? So we started digging and trying to figure out, where does it come from? And back then, much of the stuff we wanted to eat came from China. That's pretty far when we think about peak oil, right? Some of you believe or don't believe in it, but we definitely agree that it's getting more expensive to transport things around the globe. So we thought that we would just figure out what high nutrition grains and beans could grow in Southeast Ohio, because we imagined ourselves on tractors growing the best food out there. And then we started learning. John Glaser calls us accidental entrepreneurs. So we discovered that the bottleneck, there are many, but the big bottleneck to getting the best quality grains and beans to the market is processing. And that's where I really got kind of resistant. We have to start a processing facility, a mill, dust, loud machines. Do I want to spend my latter years doing that? Not really. But you were talking about what gets you up every morning, and I think that for me, I get up every morning not because of the loud machines and so forth and so on, but because I do really believe that every region needs to have a food system that can sustain that region. And without the protein and carbohydrates that are so essential to our brains and our bodies, we're not going to get there. And without growing them, without chemical inputs that pollute our water and our soil, we're not going to get there. So that's kind of why I'm doing it. So finally, I want to say, and most people start with this, it couldn't have happened without this community. This community I don't know if all of you are from here. I came here like 35 years ago, and this is the most amazing community, I like to say, in the US, but don't tell the outsiders because I don't want too many more people to move here. This community has supported us in countless ways. We've borrowed, compared to other entrepreneurs, little money, but $70,000. We've never gone to a bank for lending because community members believe in what we're doing. But more than $70,000 in currency has come to us because people have come forward, architects, saying, I can figure out the solution to your problem. Engineers, I'm going to build the platforms for your mill at a price that you can afford. You don't have to use metal. You don't have to do it the way everybody else does it. We're going to solve it. Mechanics down the road, I'm going to fix that 1980s diesel truck that you're hauling a 36-foot trailer and two 40-year-old combines on. I mean, I could go on and on. You know, the people in this community who have helped us with their brain power and their skill and their hearts, that's really what's made it possible to do what we do, and it's really wonderful. I think everybody in this room who has an idea should realize the nurturing that exists in Southeast Ohio. Thank you.